Welcome to another episode of Super Platinum Achievement. I'm Austin.
And I'm Mitch.
And today we're going to talk about dead franchises we'd like to see make a comeback.
Come back! Come back!
Yeah. We were kind of just had this discussion with, the new consoles coming out. We talked about games we'd like to see coming out with the new consoles. And we kind of got us thinking, what are some stuff we'd like to see come to these consoles that we haven't seen in a long, long time? So
yeah.
We really kind of got thinking on that and then kind of came up with some franchises we haven't seen in a while that may be dead, sleeping in a coma. We're not really sure. So,
yeah, they've done it with a couple already that I was hoping were coming back, like Tony Hawk. Obviously, they're bringing that back and introducing actually the older games to a new generation. The Mana series didn't come out with a new release, but Trials of Mana might as well be a new release because the original never released in the U.S. Until the Collection of Mana. So those are ones that I was always hoping would come back, and now they have, and that got me thinking more about what else do I want to come back that's been dead or sleeping. So one of the first ones that came to my mind is F-Zero. We haven't had an F-Zero game since GameCube. And that's a long time for such a popular franchise to be dormant.
Yeah, and I know Nintendo does that where they'll kind of put a franchise to sleep and then they'll wake them up when they need to. And
yeah.
We've seen it with the Switch. I mean, a lot of games that we haven't seen in a while have come out with the Switch. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more. And I know you have a pretty heavy Nintendo list here. So,
yeah. I've always been a huge Nintendo fanboy, and Nintendo has so many great IPs, and some that they, like Austin said, have put to sleep. And we've kind of got a spiritual successor in a way with Fast RMX. I mean, it's not nearly as good as an F-Zero game, but it does play like an F-Zero game. And that's more of an indie racing game that I've played on the Switch. And it's a lot of fun, and it makes you think of F-Zero, and that makes me want a true F-Zero with that feeling to it. And there are obviously some other ones as well. Austin, what do you think?
So, kind of what I was thinking is, I grew up playing a lot on the PlayStation 2. It was like my first, wasn't my first console, but it was my first one. I was like old enough to kind of appreciate games, and a series I really loved on there was Prince of Persia. It was kind of originally like the first really action-adventure kind of climbing game that kind of, It
was Assassin's Creed before Assassin's Creed.
Essentially, with the kind of a cool mechanic of being able to rewind time a little bit, and, you had different abilities of being like, the dark version of yourself, which they kind of stole from Zelda, but...
Yeah.
Whatever. But I'd like to see a new Prince of Persia in now. I mean, these action-adventure games like this have been so popular right now. I mean, Tomb Raider, Uncharted. So I'd like to see, I still think there's room for it to be in the market.
Absolutely. And they could even go a step further, and instead of leaving it as action-adventure with a linear path,
it'd be an open
they
world.
could make an open-world Prince of Persia.
That'd be
and
awesome.
I think it would kill it in this market.
Because the only thing that killed Prince of Persia was Jake Gyllenhaal.
I don't really know.
Let's be real here. So, I think that's the reason why the franchise died, is that terrible, awful movie. So
that movie was
let's just forget about that.
Horrible.
And let's see it happen. I'd like to see it.
That movie was dead as soon as they announced the casting for that. And nothing against Jake Gyllenhaal.
Great
He's
actor.
A phenomenal actor, but just very miscast.
Not Persian. So
yes, exactly. Another one that I would love to see come back, that tried to come back with the Wii U version, but just failed to, perform, was Star Fox.
Do a barrel roll!
I think they can do a great job at an open world Star Fox game.
Yeah.
One that might take a mix of, the spaceship piloting and have Star Fox, like he did in Star Fox Adventures, be able to get out and run around. And kind of mix them up. I'd love to see Star Fox come back with vengeance and just have a great title in there. They kind of brought Star Fox back with that game that was the cross-platform, but the Switch version had Star Fox in it. The game Starlink Battle for Atlas featured Star Fox as a main character in the Switch version. And I think a new Star Fox game would do really well.
Another game on my list is Dino Crisis. So Capcom's been out here remaking their games. Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, rumors of Resident Evil 4 is going to have a remake. But a series that they just kind of let die is Dino Crisis. I mean, it went extinct with the dinosaurs, apparently.
It did.
So I would really it was, at the time, was a hugely popular series. It was more popular than Resident Evil series. back
it
in its
was.
heyday, and I'm kind of surprised to see that it's gone down and Resident Evil's taken off as much as it has, and I'd like to see that come back. I mean, it'd look fantastic. It'd be amazing. Like, dinosaurs are awesome. They always have been. I mean, come on. So, come on.
Yeah.
Put Chris Pratt in it, and we got away.
Sold.
Ha! You can be my wingman anytime.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Speaking of dinosaurs, one that's not even on my list that you just made me think of, Turok.
Turok. There we go. There's another good dinosaur.
Turok, I played it on the Nintendo 64, and that game was a ton of fun, especially multiplayer. And that one, they'd have so many ways. I mean, you can't mess up with, how almost ridiculous those games are in so many ways. There's nothing realistic about them. They could have a lot of fun with the new Turok game.
Bring us back the dinosaurs.
We want dinosaurs, and that's all we care about, apparently.
Life, finds a way.
Speaking of dinosaurs, a game that has been dead for a long time that was really a phenomenal franchise is the Fable franchise.
Yeah.
We talked about this, mentioned it in another one of our videos, so we won't go into as much depth on that one, but I'd love to see Fable come back, whether that be a remake, a reboot, or a Fable 4. And see that franchise brought back to life with, Microsoft being an exclusive again. I'd love to see Microsoft have another big title in there and have a really good either open world or a good action adventure game involving Fable.
Yeah, so another game that's might be dead that I hope comes alive is actually Dead Space. So
yes.
EA released 3 Dead Spaces back in the early to mid 2000s time, and they were great games. I mean, I had no idea what I was getting into with Dead Space, the first game. I was like, oh, it's some whatever baby cheesy game. I had honestly no idea, and it just blew me away. It was scary, it was fun, it was hard, it was punishing, and unfortunately the series, the first 2 were so good, the third one kind of wasn't, and I think that's why it's ended up where it has. It's on stasis now.
Dead Space 2.
Good Dead Space reference there.
Dead Space 2 is on so many people's lists of, I'd say, top 10 video games of all time.
Yeah, it was
it's hard to live
fantastic.
up to that game.
I'm hoping with the kind of, EA kind of changed their tune about single-party games thanks to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, so maybe they'll be more inclined to look at these franchises that they have. The problem is Visceral Studios doesn't exist anymore, so I don't know who actually owns the IP. I'd like to see, I'm sure it's still in EA's hands somewhere, so I'd like to see maybe a Respawn or someone else in the EA's umbrella
Hand it off to another studio.
Take it up
yeah.
and, let's see a new Dead Space game.
Yeah, and maybe start with the Dead Space collection.
There you go.
And see how people, take it and see if it sells well.
I know Dead Space is still super popular.
Absolutely.
People are still playing the first one, and I mean it's been kept alive on PC through mods and stuff like that. So there's still definitely a fan group for Dead Space. I would like to see that come back.
Yeah, one I'd like to see come back to my Nintendo roots is Diddy Kong Racing. You can't really call it much of a franchise because it really only had the one game on Nintendo 64. They did have a sort of port on the Nintendo DS of Diddy Kong Racing, but I think a big reason that kind of died is because they lost the rights to Rare, and Microsoft took Rare, and a lot of their characters were from Rare. They had CONKER, which actually made his debut in Diddy Kong Racing, and then got his own game, which is completely different than Diddy Kong Racing. And then, of course, there were BANJO, Banjo-Kazooie. But I'd love to see them bring back that in some sort of way. I honestly don't think it'll happen, though, just because Mario Kart has taken over all of it.
Yeah, and then you got to keep in mind there's Crash Team Racing is also there.
Yeah.
SpongeBob Racers is also in the mix.
Obviously on top right now.
The best one, obviously.
Yes.
So
I don't think that'll happen. Back in the GameCube days, there was in development and was actually even demoed as one of the supposed launch titles with the GameCube was Donkey Kong Racing. And they had it where you actually rode the animals from Donkey Kong. So if they did something like that, that'd be pretty cool. But I honestly don't see it happening just because Mario Kart has taken all of Nintendo's characters and put them in there.
They really have. So yeah, I mean Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong are in Mario Kart. So
yeah,
it's over unless you do Mario, Diddy Kart, Kong Racing.
Yeah. I don't know. And they even did, the hover abilities and the flying abilities in Mario Kart now. So there's nothing special about Diddy Kong anymore. So that's more of my nostalgia talking, I guess.
Yeah. So going back to my roots, I know I did talk about this in a previous video, but I'd like to see Jak and Daxter come back.
And that is one I 100% agree on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so I mean, those, once again, PlayStation 2 generation, those first 3 games were fantastic. So much fun, great stories, good humor. Have the Naughty Dog polish on it, and I'd like to see that. Maybe after we see Last of Us 2 kind of come out and be successful, no doubt, and to see Jak and Daxter maybe make a comeback. So.
Yeah, and those games were a really good mix of action adventure and platforming.
Feel. Yeah, with also obviously it's more linear, but it was one of those you get into an area and you can explore the whole area. So it's kind of like a quasi open world, even back 15 years ago. I mean it was a pretty big feature in the game. So
those games, aside from graphics, gameplay wise, definitely hold up.
Yeah, have some of the coolest weaponry I've seen in any video game.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to see those. Either make a remake, kind of how they did Ratchet and Clank or something, or just do a brand new game in the series.
Yeah.
So.
And a similar type of game that I'd like to see come back. The franchise itself isn't really dead, but Donkey Kong, because they had Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze come out on the Wii U and then ported to the Nintendo Switch, which did really well. But the Donkey Kong Country versus Donkey Kong, like in Donkey Kong 64, where it's the 3D platformer, that's what I'd love to see come back, and do a similar style to Ukulele, and something like a really good 3D platformer. I'd love to see Donkey Kong come back in 3D.
Yeah, for sure. Another game I'd like to see, we kind of been getting teases of it in other games, but Splinter Cell. So we haven't had a full Splinter Cell, I think, since the PlayStation 3, unless one did show
Splinter Cell Blacklist.
Was that on PS?
That was the end of PlayStation 3, and it was a launch title for the Wii U.
Okay, so it's been a while. I know Sam Fisher's been in subsequent Ghost Recon games like Wildlands and Breakpoint, but he hasn't been had a new game in a while, and it makes me think that they keep teasing him. He's been in both these games a couple times, so it makes me think that they are laying the ground roots to a new Splinter Cell game. Hopefully it's not just a crossover with these games, because unfortunately Breakpoint did not do great, and I don't want that to be a tarnish on the Splinter Cell franchise, because they've had 5, 6, 7 games in that franchise. They've all been really well done, and was kind of the original. I wouldn't say original. I think of Metal Gear kind of gets that title of the stealth action kind of game.
I mean, it's the game that comes to mind for me when you think of Tom Clancy.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the first one that comes to mind.
So yeah, it's the Tom Clancy game in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to see that come back, because there's always room for cool tactical stealthy games, and especially with newer technology, and we can stuff like that, you can make it way better, and drones and all that stuff, the gameplay could be so different than it was 20 years ago. So
yeah, absolutely. And then last on my list, it was a franchise that died way too soon. That was a phenomenal game. People still love these games. Xbox tried to keep it going when they got the rights to it. That's Banjo-Kazooie. They had Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which was awful. I don't know what they were thinking there, what Rare was doing, what Xbox had involvement-wise, I don't know. But Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie were such fun games, and Banjo as a character and Kazooie, they're just a lot of fun. I'd love to see that come back, maybe do some, like what they did with Spyro, have some HD ports of the first 2 games, see how it goes, and then release a new one.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Get that series up and going. And they also were just released for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as characters. So, they're not irrelevant anymore. They're back in the relevant world, and in this generation of consoles in some way, give them their own game again.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, they're a good platforming game back in the day. I mean, I remember I never had an N64, but I'd go to a friend's house, and that's the game we played. So
yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So last on my list is kind of a weird one, but it's actually the Fallout series. So I think the Fallout series is dead and doesn't know it right now, with the lackluster Fallout 4 and especially the really bad Fallout 76. I think, it's not a Skyrim. So they need to it's not going to keep itself going for 10 years. I think Bethesda needs to take a step back and kind of redo the Fallout franchise, because that was one of my favorite games, and then it's just been ruined. I know it doesn't really qualify, but I put it on here because it's just been the most upsetting thing for me the last 6 years. So
it's not dead, but they killed themselves.
Yeah, it's a zombie at this point.
Yeah. So. That one was a sad one to see, especially with Bethesda's success. I think the last great Fallout game would have been Fallout. Was it Fallout
New
3?
Vegas. It'd be New Vegas.
3, New Vegas was
But
after
New Vegas can
Fallout
be
3.
given to the credit of Obsidian,
Jinx, buy me a Coke.
who has now since come out and made their own game, kind
Yep.
of like that, and totally kicked Bethesda's butt on it.
Yep.
So that's Outer Worlds, fantastic game, recommend it. That is not a dead franchise, and I hope to see more.
Now available on the Nintendo Switch.
But yeah, I kind of put this as a joke, but I'm kind of half serious about it. So
Yeah, honestly, it was a joke, but they've been
they've
slowly
killed them.
dying.
They killed it.
So, tell us what you think. What are some franchises that are dead, so to speak, that you'd love to see come back, or ones like what Austin was talking about with Fallout, ones that have tried to stay relevant but haven't done a great job that you'd love to see come back and really just knock it out of the park. Let us know in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on all our social media pages at Super Platinum Achievement, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
See ya.